Hi, this is Sean with Ohmmu Energy, and today we're going to show you how to swap the 12-volt battery in your Volkswagen ID.4. So this is the ID.4. I'll give you a little feedback on the ID.4. I really like them. I think they're very smooth. They drive well. They're built well. Volkswagen's been building cars a long time. They know how to do it. Things are intuitive as far as like transferring from whatever you used to drive into it. It's very, very easy to do. And although I think they kind of don't have the best infotainment system, but they drive very, very nicely. And I think depending on the driver, the infotainment lack may be a good thing, because sometimes cars have way too much going on with infotainment systems, and you're touching and tapping and doing way more things than you probably should be while you're driving on a screen in the middle of the car. I'm obviously hinting here at Tesla. It's quite a bit. Everything is on one screen. It's actually a bit too much, at least for me, and I think for some others. So you've got more tactile response, separate buttons than one screen, which is nice. So depending on the person, I think they're great. They're a good fit. They're well built. They have great range. And today we're going to upgrade this one with an Ohmmu lithium battery, which is awesome because it's going to get a lot longer life out of the 12-volt battery. Volkswagen was having some issues with the 12-volt batteries in these cars. And so if you upgrade to a nice, longer lasting, better capacity, lighter weight, just better chemistry and more robust battery, you're probably not going to have those issues, which is really nice too. And you're not going to experience a dead car at random, which is what some people were experiencing. They'd get these 12-volt, just kill the car, because even EVs rely on a 12-volt battery to run the show. The computers that wake the car up and make sure the car sees your key fob and things like that so that it can turn on. It's all done still by the 12-volt system. So upgrading is a smart thing to do, and it's not a very difficult thing to do. We're going to show you the process today, and it just involves a couple of tools, nothing major. You need a 10mm socket wrench with a long adapter extension on it, a 13mm also with an extension on it, some kind of a flathead screwdriver or a poker kind of thing. We're going to push some little plastic flaps with that. And then safety tools. We're always critical of safety. You're going to want to wear gloves with some kind of rubber to them so that you don't get shocked potentially. It's 12 volts, so it's not a huge deal, but it is something. And then safety goggles. There's acid in the existing batteries, and sometimes that leaks, and sometimes it can get on your fingers, and you might have the accident of getting that in your eye, or something could fly at your eye. And the worst thing is to lose vision over something as simple as a 12-volt battery replacement. So good idea to always have goggles on whenever you're doing stuff on a car. So we will dive into it and show you how to do it. First, I'll give you an overview, and the process is there's this metal bar on the top we're going to remove. There's 6 13mm bolts that we'll take out. Take that bar out of the way. Then there's some plastic trim pieces we're going to pull out of the way. They just pull out of their slots. There's a fill tube for the windshield washer fluid. We're going to move that out of the way. Then we can disconnect the negative. Important step, and doing it in the right order is what I mean. But that the important order is to remove the negative terminal first. That way the vehicle is disconnected from that 12-volt battery, and you won't run the risk of shorting anything while you work on the positive side. So first we're gonna get the negative off, and then make sure we tuck the end of that wire out and around the way on something so it doesn't come back and accidentally make contact with the battery again. Then we will remove some things off the positive side, which we'll show you. Get that out of the breakout board, which is like a fuse board on top of the positive terminal. Get that tucked out of the way. Disconnect the positive terminal. Disconnect remove the bracket that holds the battery down. Then the battery comes out, and presto changeo, we reverse everything, and we're with the new battery. So now we will show you how to do it. All right, let's get to it. These 6 13mm bolts have got to come off. So loosen, then take the extension off. You can loosen these ones in the back. Now, once they are all loosened, you can just go ahead and finish them by hand. Try to just do one at a time so that you don't drop one. So as it gets to the end, be very careful that you don't drop it. Because the last thing you want to do is be hunting around the front end of the car trying to find a loose bolt and turning a job that should have taken you 10 to 15 minutes into an hour over something silly. Now with those 6 off, we can just remove that bracket. All right, now this plastic piece here just lifts, kind of push and lift. That'll come out. Set that to the side here. Then this one goes up. You kind of pull up and then you can lift the back side up. Now those are out of the way. This windshield washer reservoir tube, there's just a little knob knob you can pinch and then get that out of your way. Next, we're going to remove the negative terminal off the battery with a 10mm socket. Important to note is don't remove this cover right here, this nice cover over the positive terminal and the positive breakout board, because then you run the risk of arcing with your tool, because you'll be touching the negative terminal with the end of your tool, and then you're clearly going to hit it with this side. And so leaving the plastic in place prevents you from shorting out the battery. Once you get that loosened, then you can just slide the lug off and tuck it away so it doesn't fall back out onto the battery. So tuck it kind of deep in there. That'll keep that away. Now that that's out of the way, we're going to remove this plate. There's 2 little plastic nubs. That you pinch. They're right here and here. And then you can slide that up. There's one wire we need to remove because it crosses over the battery and we're not going to be able to get it out if we don't. And that is this one right here, which powers the shunt or the current collector, whatever sensor. It may be a temperature sensor, actually, I shouldn't say. I know what it is, but it's a sensor on the negative lug connection. So we're going to take that wire off, which they have these neat little ends that actually hold the nut in place for you. That's engineering ingenuity there. And then just slide the positive off on that little wire. Then you can tuck that kind of up into the back there, get it out of your way, and you can even reseat this just a little bit. You don't have to tighten it down. Then we can take this whole plate here off. It may be very loose. In this car, it is really loose right now. Sometimes it's tighter, and if it is, let me try to secure it better so I can show you. If it's secured tighter, then just lift up on these little ends, and you can slide it forward a bit and just kind of work its way off. There's 3 arms that grab onto the battery itself. Once that's up, then you can tuck it forward. Now that that is forward, you can see the terminal here. We're going to loosen this 10mm, take the lug off, and then there's one more 13mm straight down that pulls the bracket off of the battery. So to remove this 10mm, take the extension off of our wrench and loosen it up. Then once it's loose, you can just kind of wiggle it, lift it up. Finally, we can bring in the extension tool on a 13mm so that we can loosen this bolt up. Once it's loose, you can lose the wrench and just use your extension tool to help turn it. And then once it's pretty loose from there, you can go down with your fingers so you don't lose it. And finish unthreading it with your fingers. Bolt. And now this plate just lifts straight up and off. Now that the battery is loose from that mounting plate, you just slide it forward a little bit, and then you can tip this side up as soon as you get it far enough forward so that it's free of the holster that it's in. Once it's free of that edge over there, you can lift it out. And it's pretty heavy. So don't feel bad if it takes you a little effort of getting it out. Oh. Now let's go weigh this sucker. All right, let's weigh that big boy. We're looking at 31 pounds and 13, almost 14 ounces. So just about 32 pounds. And then Ohmmu battery, 8 pounds, 5 ounces. So you're almost a fourth of the weight, pretty much a fourth of the weight, just slightly higher than a fourth. So that's pretty cool. This is easy to handle, easy to work with. So it'll be way easier to install. And in the future, hopefully never, when you replace it, it'll be easy to do again. All right, now let's bring in the new battery. It's gonna be everything the same, but backwards. So the battery goes in, making sure the terminals are that way. First set it kind of like up and to the side, then shift it this way, then back, and it'll secure. Then we can take this bracket and put that down in there. Once it's in place, bring your longer 13 millimeter bolt in. Get it as tight as you can by hand, and then just finish tightening it with your socket wrench and extension on 13 millimeter socket. That'll tighten and the battery is totally secure in its spot. First connection we're going to make once this is tight is the positive. Let's leave these caps on until the last minute. So now we take the positive off, we're going to leave the negative one on. And we bring the positive wire in, tighten it, or positive wire in, push that down firm, and then we can tighten it. You can kind of tighten it by hand a bit and then finish it with your tool. You want it nice and snug so that when you try to rotate it, it doesn't. Then this plastic apparatus will click back over the top. And it may not be super tight or grab on. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be like held into a exact spot necessarily. Now we have to make sure we bring this wire in from the sensor. So we're going to loosen the one we took off earlier. Go ahead and remove it again. Bring that wire in, land it there. Put this back on top. Get it down to where tight by hand, then finish tight with your tool. Now we've got all the positive connections in place. We'll go ahead and put our cover back on there before we ever even try to touch the negative. And now finally, with all of that covered up and connected, we'll finally make our negative connection, remove the cap, bring that lug back around. When you make this connection, you may or may not observe little bit of sparks, which is totally fine, totally normal. It's just a bit of current jumping to wake the car back up. Didn't really get much there. I usually move pretty fast putting that connection on, so you don't really get it. But you might. So now we tighten that one down. This is why it's so important to have plastic covers in place and gloves on so that you don't arc tools while working on terminals. Make sure it's tight, wiggle a little, doesn't wiggle, good. That's secure. Now we move on to just reattaching plastics. This one goes here. This piece goes right up here. There's a little guide up here in the top. You can see that very well. This end slides into that first. Once that slides in there, then you can push the front down. And this cover just goes on there like that. And then the metal bar goes across and the 6 bolts go back in. Start them by hand. Tightening down as much as you can by hand. It's always a good idea to put them all in before you tighten any of them fully with anything like this, just because if you tighten one spot and you tightened it a little crooked, another spot way on the other side may not line up right for you. So it's just good practice to put all of your bolts in place, then finish securing them after they're all in place. So those are all in place. Now we're going to tighten. And that is it. So we did the install, and there's some alerts that popped up. They cleared as we drove it, so they weren't any big deals. A couple of them had to do with the adaptive cruise control system. I'm gonna guess, I don't know this to be a fact, but I'm gonna guess that it maybe had to do with recalibrating some of the sensors, like the forward-facing camera. A lot of times those systems need to recalibrate, and so maybe it got reset the calibration. It just needed to be driven a little bit for it to identify some of like how objects are interacting with the vehicle as it's at certain speeds on the camera. So anyways, they cleared, we drove it, we turned it off, turned it back on, drive it again, and then they were gone. So that's really not gonna be a problem. It's not the first time we've done an install on these. It's not the first time we've seen those. It's just something I wanted to make sure everybody's aware of when you do the install, as you could see those alerts. You may not as well, but if you do, just give it a few minutes, drive it a little bit, and you should see them go away. All right, so you saw how to do it. It was easy. Now this car has a 12-volt lithium from Ohmmu, and let me show you something kind of cool. You get the Ohmmu app, and you can then see information about your battery, which is pretty cool. So right now, the battery is not charging or discharging. It's actually got 0 amps. Before it was blowing 20 amps out, and then it was charging at 20 amps, and that's kind of normal, that it'll push current in and pull current out as it needs. But yeah, get the Ohmmu app with all of our newer batteries. We're Bluetooth compatible. Almost all of them, I should say. There's a couple of lines we haven't got there yet. And that is very useful in diagnosing your battery and also seeing some cool data about your car and the way it's using your 12-volt battery. And we'll be able to do firmware updates on the 12-volt battery from the app, which is really sweet. And if we ever need to do diagnostics, can actually send a diagnostic report through the app to us on the 12-volt battery. So check that out. It's the Ohmmu app. And so that was an easy install again. Some of the really cool things about this upgrade on this car is we saved it's a fourth of the weight. So we saved 20-something pounds on this, which is great. Every little bit counts, and every little bit in an EV means a little bit higher efficiency because you're pushing around a little less weight, which is nice. It's gonna last way longer, so you have a battery now that's service life is much, much longer in time, 10 years potentially, which is really cool. So you're gonna use a lot less material because the car is not gonna require as often 12-volt battery changes, and the battery itself uses less material because it's a lot lighter. And so that's great. It's more eco-friendly because of that. And the total life cycle cost is actually lower when you factor in the service intervals, like how often you have to change it, and each change and each battery cost for each of those changes. In addition to all that, most people experience a little higher performance in terms of things like audio quality or headlight brightness. I mean, it's kind of minutia, but the voltage is always going to operate just a little bit higher because of the chemistry. So there's less voltage sag when loads are pulling on the battery, and that means that the voltage is just a little bit higher. It's really small amount, but it is real, and there's a real difference there. Check us out. We're at ohmmu.com, ohmmu.com. Ever need help from us or want to reach out, you can reach us at support@ohmmu.com through email. And of course, we have a webpage, which is support.ohmmu.com. And all of those are great ways to connect with us, and we'd love to hear from you. Enjoy your electric vehicle.